Okay, welcome back to Secrets of Roll Mangging, the second half of our weekly Call of Cthulhu Horror on the Orient Express session, where I kind of delve into all the background stuff going on. Okay, so this session it was actually a pretty important session as far as stuff goes. They finally got their first look at the Dreamlands, and so now that is an option available to them that I'm sure they're going to take up as often as possible. But unfortunately, they can't just spend the rest of their lives in the Dreamlands. They also have to save the waking world, and so in the pursuit of that, they went through Lausanne in Switzerland, and they got up to some misadventures. I was worried right off the bat when they first arrived in Lausanne. They went straight to, they first asked if there were any Turks around. So I was like, some Turkish guy's going to get murdered in this town. But then they went to the taxidermist shop, and they found out it was locked. And nobody was answering the knocking. So their first thought was to go around the back and try and lockpick the gate to get in. And the only reason that they didn't follow through and keep going was because I think Luton failed his first lockpicking roll. Oh boy. Call of Cthulhu, man. Grand Theft Orient Express, basically. And then, things kind of went mostly as planned, although Luton just watching the Wellington shop like a hawk was not planned. That really threw me for a loop. I wasn't quite sure what to do because the book doesn't mention that. Like, you'd think that would be like something planned for. You'd think some people would be suspicious of this mysterious taxidermist guy with his weird brother that is like, oh, I'm gonna go get the scroll from a bank. Somebody's gonna watch him, and I think it does mention maybe him being followed. Maybe. I don't even know if it mentions that. Oh, here. This is the one little paragraph. It says, the investigators may be watching the shop. In the early afternoon, Edgar leaves and walks to a local stationer's. He emerges with a parcel under his arm, whereupon he returns home and does not leave again. That's pretty much it. That's all it says. Now, it doesn't say if they keep watching and then they try to break in, because that really messes things up. Because the Duke needs to show up, and he needs to kill Wellington. I guess, as far as sections of the campaign go, this one's fairly free form, as the scroll is not that essential. Like, the scroll is not really essential for them winning the campaign, And really, everything is kind of free form. Anything can be changed. So, I was probably overreacting a little bit. And so I was like, the Duke, I don't think they'll break in again. What I could have done is had William just beat the shit out of Luton when he first went in there. I could have just had William pummel the shit out of him and then knock him unconscious. And then when he wakes up, he's like in the house. William's dead body is next to him. Edgar's nearby, also dead. And he's just like, maybe the police are at the door. Something I could have done something like that for being nosy. But I was just like, all right, they're going to keep watching. The Duke's going to come by, and they're going to see him go inside. And then that's probably... I figured they would spring into action, but the front door's still locked. They're going to go around back. I guess I don't know why they didn't just go in the front door, but it gave me a little bit of time. And the back door was locked again, so they had to pick that. And then, they heard a scuffle upstairs. They ran up there, but, all the doors are closed. Because, screw you, the doors are closed. And so I was like... This is where I was kind of having a scrambling moment. Because I needed to find out all the Duke's stats. And the Duke, as I mentioned, is not easy to take down, but he's got a bunch of spells that are like custom spells for the campaign. and they're not mentioned, they're not discussed in detail until like the end of the Constantinople chapter, because a bunch of characters have these spells, so it doesn't talk about them until later. So I was like scrambling to find that book to look up these spells, but then luckily they didn't go in the kitchen, they went into Edgar's room, so they saw his body. And so then I just took some liberties and was like, yeah, the Duke is like, he's like a ghost or something. He's so fast, he's just, boom, he's gone. You just saw a blur and you can't catch up to him. And yeah, that might just be DM intervention bullshit, but sorry. I basically just saved your lives. That's what I did. I mean, yeah, I could have just, if you guys had gone into the kitchen, you probably would have like tried to fight him, and Luton would have gotten blasted hard and fast because he had a gun. And gun doesn't really hurt the Duke, but it hurts him a tiny bit. Walter with his rapier would have done absolutely nothing. Zero damage, nothing ever. So like he could have just, you know. So yeah, I probably wouldn't have killed them if they had done that. They would have just been knocked out and in severe pain for a long time, but I was hoping to avoid that, and so fortunately I used some bullshit and he got away and blah blah blah. Okay, and so then they, Walter trying to say that he was going to stand guard over the others, just nope. And I think William Barth summed it up at the end when he's like, you really just got to play this as like a movie. It's like, you just play it like a cinematic movie, you know? And I was like, yes, that's what I'm trying to run here. That's how I'm trying to run it, is as a movie. Keep that in mind. Now, as I've mentioned before, that doesn't give every character automatic 100% plot armor, as, you know, Indiana Jones might have. But we're trying to keep it very cinematic. And standing guard while the others are in a crazy dream adventure is not cinematic. Standing guard is for, like, the pissant bloke that you hire to stand guard. It's not for a main character. But anyways. So yeah, their little dream adventure. I could have made this... Yeah, here's the problem that I have as a keeper, is I'm not very good. I'm not a very good DM. Because the book supplies you with scenes, okay? It gives you, like, a general information about, like, a situation. So for the dream shit, you know, it gives you, like, a basic description. Where does it say something? Like, here. Dream Lausanne is like a gothic nightmare of the real thing. People wear a medieval costume and they are streaming uphill towards the cathedral in the direction of the bell. The sky has a rich purple tint like a permanent dusk. And it's just like, that's what it says in the book. And so what I do as the DM is I just read that to them. And I just, you know, they just have to use their imagination. A good DM, a good keeper, a good GM, whatever, would really kind of just flesh this out and describe it to them. And I don't really do that. So, I guess, I mean, I don't think it really bothers any of the players that much. It's just kind of a personal weakness that I have. If I were better at the whole thing, yes, everything would be very descriptive, and I'm sure there are some GMs that do that, and they describe everything, and you feel atmospheric and stuff, but I think we're fine, I think, just getting to the exciting stuff and the action and, you know, the decision-making and stuff like that. And so I basically just read all the 7 events as written in the book, more or less. And they were interesting, unique stuff. I just didn't really set the scene very much. I just kind of read it. And so then we got to the trial. And they didn't try anything really before. Like, they were just like, oh, I guess we'll defend him. You know, I thought they would try to, like, somebody would fire their little crossbow at the prince or something, or, you know, try something. But no, they just went to the trial and they thought, oh, this will be fair and balanced. You know, this animated statue that was given life through a skinned corpse. Sure, I'm sure it's fair. Fortunately, it was. And so the, yeah, if I had to be perfectly honest, I probably would have given them like 2 points, 2 points, 2 points. I would have given them like 6 total for their defense. They probably would have failed. But it's just like, who wants to do that? Like, the only way I would have really failed them is if they just like refused to participate at all. They're just like, screw you, man. We're not doing what you know. If they didn't really defend him at all, then I probably would have failed them. But they tried their best. You know, they gave a good effort. You know, obviously it could have been vastly improved, but they really tried. So that's good enough for me. And because if they fail, they don't get the scroll. They don't save Edgar, and they lose 1d6 sanity each. That's it. Like that. That's it. That's it. And that's just like, wow, that's shit. So, yeah, they would have had to really just not try at all. Okay, so then we didn't quite get to the final bit of the Lausanne section. We had to cut it off, as I mentioned. And so we'll start the next session with that. And basically, I don't know if I really talked about this, but what's going to happen is the train's going to, like, around 6:45 a.m., the train's going to set out. And around 7 a.m., they're going to be seated for breakfast. And in the dining car, the waiter seats the investigators at an empty table. They slump into the elegant high-back chairs, feeling comfortable for the first time in ages. As they wait their entree, they overhear a conversation from the next table. The waiter asks the diner, "Will Monsieur be dining alone today?" The response is, "No, I think I will eat with my friends." It is the Duke's voice. The waiter reseats him next to the investigators. I imagine him like turning around as he says this and just staring at them, you know, something like that. And so he places a small briefcase at his feet as he sits down, and he smiles and says, "Gentlemen, if you'll excuse my hurried bluntness, I come to the point. I want the scroll. You will give it to me, or you I will destroy. Your answer promptly, please. I have little time." And so then it's basically just up to them. Thinking of this group, they might remember the fake scroll. That's really their best bet, is to give him the fake scroll. He'll just take it, he'll laugh gleefully, and he'll leave. And that's basically it. You can keep the real scroll. If they fight him, that's pretty bad. Because basically he'll hand their asses to him. He'll hand their asses to them. And probably some innocent bystanders along with it. And that'll be bad. Or I guess they can also stall him for long enough. In some fashion, they're gonna have to be creative to do that, and eventually the train will reach kind of the edge of his range, and so he'll just kind of disappear. Yeah. So we'll see how they do with that. I mean, I'd be very interested if they got into combat with him, so I can just unleash finally some shriveling spells and stuff. If they just refuse to give it to him and they think he's just, you know, screw you, we're not, screw you, he just goes and sits back at his table and he just starts, like, casting spells at them, like, shriveling. And so the first target would, of course, be William Barth, so I can target his left arm specifically and shrivel it. But we'll see. And, of course, the Duke will be making a reappearance either way, much later in the campaign. Okay, so then they probably won't have any time then to do any Dreamland stuff because they'll be arriving in Milan pretty quickly. And so Milan, or Milano, 1923, note for note, wherein the investigators learn of a darkness that has spread over this vibrant city, and the investigators locate the torso during a less than hilarious night at the opera. Okay, so we're in Italy then, and France I could kind of handle as far as accents and places and naming things and stuff like that. I was doing all right. Italy and beyond, no, I lose any advantage I had, so it's going to be rough. Okay, so Italy in 1923 is in the, it's the rise of Benito Mussolini, who's on track to lead a fascist government. And so I read into this kind of whole time period a little bit, and so the kind of rise of fascism, the downfall of socialism, and his own little military force prowling the streets known as the Black Shirts. And so the Black Shirts are, I'm probably going to exaggerate more than they were. They're probably going to be even more villainous than they ever were in real life, because why not? But really, Milan is not that long of a section, if I can show you. Yeah. This is basically Milan right here. See, it's pretty damn thin compared to the whole length of the book. It is about 22 pages. Lausanne, by comparison, was about 26 pages. So it's even shorter than Lausanne. And so, okay, they arrive here about 2 days or so. Close to 3 days, I guess. I guess it's about 2 days. Before the opening night of the opera at La Scala. And this is the opera that Caterina Cavallaro invited them to. She got front row tickets, a hotel room, everything, a whole thing. All good stuff. But as we already mentioned, she's not going to make it to the opera. Actually, she is, but she won't be performing. Okay. So, I will read the kind of keeper information, as that's kind of what you're interested in. That's the secrets of role Mangging. But really, what we get into here is really the kind of Call of Cthulhu stuff. Like, this is the Call of Cthulhu-esque. This is where it really gets going. Whereas kind of Masks started with this and kept going through the whole time. Because here we encounter the Brothers of the Skin, which is the main cult for the whole campaign. Like, this is where they really meet them. And so, Caterina Cavallaro has been abducted by Milan's chapter of the Brothers of the Skin. A gaunt, elderly man, one Arturo Fascia, heads it. Fascia met Selim Makrat in 1906 on a business trip to Turkey, and thereafter returned to Milan to draw a group of brothers from the ranks of wealthy businessmen and politicians. Fascia owns several factories on the outskirts of Milan, which other brothers now operate, exploiting the workmen to the utmost. Fascia is obsessed with the power possible were the entire Sedefkar simulacrum found and assembled, and has done all he can to locate the piece that reputedly exists in Milan. Mystics have repeatedly told him that one piece of the simulacrum is in, or has been in, or will be in the city. The persistence of these vague reports has ignited his fantasies and whetted his appetites, and he has spent years in searching for the artifact. As he inexorably ages, he has come to believe a local superstition. It is said that singing an aria along with the singer on the La Scala stage grants one's fondest desire. In his madness, the simulacrum has come to mean immortality, and he has seized upon the La Scala superstition as the key. To improve his chances, he has seized Cavallaro's beautiful voice as well, using the spell Transfer Organ. Cultists ordinarily transplant lungs, livers, kidneys, and so on, surgery otherwise impossible in the 1920s. Such life-saving transplants have allowed Fascia to convert brothers who would otherwise have laughed at him. Thus, the Milan chapter is composed of the middle-aged and elderly rich, whose generous contributions fund its ghastly activities. Fascia sent his latest organ recipient, Flavio Conti, to the station, where Cavallaro recognized him as a patron of La Scala. Abducted, she was taken to a warehouse in the outskirts of the city, and there Fascia cast control skin on her to make her look unrecognizably aged and haggard. He then cast transfer organ to exchange their lungs and vocal cords. Cavallaro remains alive so that Fascia can get his own voice back after the experiment. The two spells performed, Signorina Cavallaro suffered both the loss of her appearance and her prized voice. The shock has left her temporarily insane and an amnesiac. With his new ability, Fascia has decided to practice at night on the deserted streets, where the timbre of the echoes can be glorious. He too has tickets for the opening night of Ada, where he will sing the aria with the original star's voice, simultaneously with the understudy. Fascia is well protected from inquiry by his reputation for commercial success. One bodyguard, Benito Adriani, is not a brother and knows nothing of the connection with the cult. Adriani will have the job of warning off the investigators if they intrude into Fascia's plans. Remarkably, Fascia has not much thought about what Benito thinks of Fascia's new and svelte female voice. So yes, cultist. Yes. See, this we know. This we understand. But really, investigators will have kind of no real clue that there's cultists abound. I mean, they're always worried about Turks, but Turks aren't really the problem here. It's Italians. And so they're going to find out pretty quickly that Caterina is missing. They're not going to know that she's been abducted or if she's dead or alive. They just know that nobody's seen her. And so they'll find a newspaper article saying that she's gone missing. Fears of abduction. She's not been seen since yesterday. Since she arrived in Milan, and then she hasn't returned to her apartment or attended rehearsals at La Scala. And opening night is soon, tomorrow night. And so the atmosphere of the city is very gloom. It's actually amazing. Like, Caterina was like the heart and soul of this entire city. And so now that she's not here, she's missing, abducted, whatever, like, it's doom and gloom. The investigators feel more and more that Milan is a hollow city, and that while the brick and mortar is sound, the flesh and blood is not. Milan has neither brashness nor vivacity. In the pale winter light, Milan is a gray city growing dimmer. Like, this is some, like, Dark Souls, Bloodborne, whatever, some shit, man. The investigators see people slumped over cafe tables, exhausted. People leaning heavily against the walls and posts, crying. The breakup of couples and of old friends turned to sullen anger. The open admiration of physical beauty changed to envy and sniggering lust. The contrast between such spiritual poverty and the elegance of dress is keen and puzzling. But Milan is still incongruously fashion-conscious. Successful psychology role or medicine in a pinch indicates that the Milanese seem to suffer from a type of depression, similar to the delayed shock often experienced some months after someone very close has died. Yeah, so it's a dark, doom-gloom town, and this is not what Caterina advertised to them on the train. Like, she spoke at length about the beauty and, the energy of Milan, and they're not experiencing that. So their goal then in Milan is to find Caterina. It's a very singular goal. I mean, their goal is also to find the simulacrum piece, but they really have no idea where to even look for that. So their immediate goal then, I would hope, I guess I could be drastically wrong. My hope is that they look for Caterina, because that's kind of the point of this section. And so they can go to all sorts of different places. They can go to her apartment. They can go to the police, to the train station where she got dropped off. They can go to La Scala. They can go to their hotel. They can go to the cathedrals. All sorts of different stuff. And they find some interesting characters, some crazy characters, crazy old men, three weird old women dressed in black. Like, okay. And there's also then there's a separate little story about the death of a union member, a unionist. And they'll see some protesters outside the police station saying, holding signs saying "Justice for Ennio Spinola." So they might look into that. That is not it's not a red herring. That's another victim of fascia. Yeah, so that's kind of not really a separate thing. They could get some info out of that, but really, again, their main goal is to find Katerina. And hopefully they find her before opening night at La Scala, the big opera, the big opening night. She was so excited, and they're not going to find her. They're not going to find her before then. So their only hope then is to just go to the opera and see what happens. Although I don't know why I guess it's assumed that they do go to La Scala at some point before opening night to kind of check out the place. Especially since on opening night, or the day of opening night, there's a newspaper article put out that says, Cavallaro's disappearance, another tragedy? And it's the music director at La Scala said that Ada would open tonight with the understudy appearing in the title role. And the props manager for the opera told a different tale. "We thought our troubles were over," he said, when the costumier's curse ended with the preparations for Ada. "But now the bad luck is on the set itself. People are being injured or falling ill, and props are disappearing. Where will this end?" And so, whenever there's a newspaper article, you have to follow up on it. You have to follow up on it. So, it's assumed that they'll go to the La Scala and kind of, try to find the props guy, talk to the music director, look around the place. And the place itself is, let me just read this section to you because it's freaking crazy. Like this is the perfect example of what I'm talking about, where I'm probably pretty much just going to read this section to them instead of just describing the scene and kind of going through the scene. Okay, but backstage. Inside, the investigators soon lose sight of the stage door as strange sights intervene. A 10-foot-high wooden nose against a wall, which will be gone the next time they pass this way. Pharaohs sit smoking cigars and playing cards. A trail of stage blood leads underneath a door. Sounds also echo along these walls, sets being built, singers exercising their throats, instruments being tuned, orders shouted and countermanded. Activity is frantic as performance time nears. The mood of the cast and crew is a mixture of sadness and confusion over the loss of their star, anticipation of great things done, and performance excitement. Groups gather to cry or to sing together, creating oases and vortices of sound that wash and intermingle along the corridors, starting and vanishing as suddenly as a desert stream. Pictures of Cavallaro stuck up everywhere, garlanded with rose and ribbons. It is as if the singer stares accusingly from every wall, every door. Members of the cast press their lips to these shrines as they pass. The investigators are continually being run past, or shoved aside, or wailed at by wild-eyed singers as they carry on in the tradition of Italian grand opera. Far from windows, vents, or outer doors, the atmosphere becomes increasingly surreal. A row of plaster limbs are dragged past, tied on a long rope, bumping and scraping. A huge chariot wheel covered in paste jewels suddenly rolls down the corridor, threatening to knock down the investigators. Egyptians sporting horrific battle wounds stroll by, cheerfully singing and chanting in torrents. Then a landslide of severed wooden heads cascades down a dark corridor and forces the investigators down an even darker passage. In the distance, the squeak of wood against plaster sounds like a giggling. Only a luck roll at hard difficulty keeps the investigators from becoming lost. Once they are lost, anything less than shouted demands for help are ignored. They feel that they are adrift in a madhouse, where the laws of reality have changed, that they are intruding on a world obsessed by its devotion to artifice and trickery. They are behind the scenes, party to the clockwork demon of art. After a third group of slaves in foil chains skip past, or after a sidelong glance reveals a baleful eye as big as a dinner table glaring at them between the curtains, each investigator must receive a sanity roll. lose 0/1 sanity. To resist the idea that their search has no significance or importance, that the theater is reality, and that illusion is the goal to which all activity is directed. It's just like, wow! Very well written stuff, but I mean, I'm not going to just read that through for them. That's not what's going to happen. I'm going to make an attempt to really kind of describe it and go through it. But really, that's only to a certain point. Eventually, it's just like, all right, move on, you know? Yeah, the music director pretty much doesn't know anything. He's kind of pointless to talk to. The props guy knows a bit more, and he really directs them to go to the costumery. That's basically where everything important happens. Because at the costumery, they find the 3 crazy old black dressed women who only speak Italian, but there's an English speaker there as well. And there they get the implication that there were 7 like mannequins that the costume department uses, and the six of them are fairly new, but there's a 7th one that has been taken downstairs, and they are glad. Though it had no physical effect on them, they are too old and too sure of themselves. It makes them feel uneasy. Still, it was very useful. Costumes made on it never seem to need adjusting. And so, yeah, I mean, unless you're retarded, you're probably going to assume that something's up with this 7th mannequin. And so they are going to probably try to find this mannequin then before opening night, but they won't. They won't. And even if they get close to like they really get pushy, the very burly bodyguard that guards the kind of the stage door and stuff like that, he's going to find them and be like, yeah, you guys, you're disrupting shit, get out of here. And, I don't know, do I have stats for this guy? He's probably pretty good. Marco Baldo. Oh my god, his last name's Baldo. Yeah, he's got a plus 1d6 damage bonus, 70% in brawl. Yeah, he could probably screw them up pretty good. So basically, it all comes down then to them going to the opera. Now, here's the thing. Here's the funny part. Is they've been assigned hotel rooms at the nicest hotel in Milan, like right near the opera. It's like right above the opera, something like that. Katerina saw to all of it. They have each have their own room, and Fascia is going to find out that these people are meddling in his affairs. You know, they're on to him. Especially if they look into the whole union guy, because there's a good chance they break into the guy's house at some point, you know, Fascia's mansion. So he's going to find out about them. And, of course, he has Katerina abducted, and she knows that they are staying on the Orient Express, and she knows exactly where they're staying in Milan if they stay at the hotel. So, yeah, they might get paid a visit by the bodyguard. What the hell is his name? Benito. And this guy is not afraid to kill. He's a bodyguard, but he's really more like an assassin. And yeah, he's got some guns. He can handle himself, and he'll probably bring along some assistance if needed. And so, yeah, if they stay at the hotel as assigned by Katerina, there's a good chance we might have our first casualties of the campaign. Because Benito has no qualms about shooting up a hotel room. I mean, he's done shit like that before. He'll get away. They won't trace it back to him. So, yeah, that'll be interesting. Now, they might decide to stay on the train then, as they did in Lausanne. But that's even kind of worse, because the train offers even less protection. The only protection on the train is their conductor, which is Giuseppe, which is, near Lethotep, but he's not really going to stop he's not gonna like slaughter Benito or anything like that. So he's just gonna pretend he got knocked out or some bullshit because it's more interesting. Because it's more interesting to me. So really, their best bet for surviving that would be staying in like some seedy little unknown Milan hotel or motel, I guess. Another Aladdin place. But I don't know if they'd even expect. Maybe, but I doubt it. I doubt they'd expect anything because there's really not a whole lot of hints that there's like cults at work here. So I don't know if they really would think that they're being targeted, which is good because then that's just more fun for me. Hotel room shootouts, yes. Anyways. So, at the actual opera, when they do go there for opening night, basically what's going to happen is the opera is going to begin. They're gonna have front row seats. If they actually want to attend the opera and watch it, they either have to. They're not going to get any other tickets. Well, I guess they could trade their tickets to somebody else if they really didn't want to sit in front row, but it doesn't make a difference, and it actually would hurt them if they don't sit in the front row. Unless it does give some info if people want to go and hide backstage. Like if they're stealthy and they want to hide backstage to give a better like vantage point or something like that, they could do that. Or the best bet, the actual best bet for them, is to get themselves in as an extra in the opera. Because if they like fast talk or disguise themselves as to be an extra, then they come in at a crucial point. They come in as a priest or a soldier in the scene where the special mannequin comes out and is used on stage. And this is, of course, the torso of the simulacrum. And so they're going to be like right there, and they're going to be the ones that actually like wheel it off stage. Or they're going to be part of the group that wheels it off stage. So they're going to be right there with it. So that's actually their best bet, is if they get to be an extra. But I don't know if I see anybody in our group really doing that. Like, I don't even know. Well, maybe. I don't know if anybody even has points in disguise or fast talk. I don't know. That's not really our group's specialty. So I don't see that happening, but that would be their best bet. But if not, if they all just sit there and watch from the front row, they do notice during the main kind of aria that they've heard before. They've heard directly from Katerina, but this time it is being performed by the understudy. But they also hear Katerina's voice as well, singing along with the understudy, very close to them. And so they're going to pinpoint, I guarantee they'll pinpoint where it's coming from, because it's coming from like down the aisle from them. And it's coming from a tall, elderly man with a scar on his neck. And they can tell that he is singing in the exact voice of Caterina Cavallaro, which causes them to lose some sanity. They also see next to him is a old crone. And she's also scarred on the neck, and she kind of bears a faint resemblance to Katerina. Perhaps they're related. If they somehow put together the fact that this is Katerina, they're just like, that must be Katerina. That's more sanity loss, so, you know. They'll probably put that together at some point, but, yeah. So then, once the torso comes out on stage, maybe or maybe not with one of the investigators as an extra, either way. Once it comes out on stage, they all instantly recognize it as the piece of the simulacrum. And they can all notice that the elderly guy over there, which is, it's Fascia, he's like, his eyes are like, he's like drooling when he's staring at this torso. And so, I guess if they're insane, if the party is actually insane, they could like charge the stage right now and steal the torso and try and get away. Perhaps using the briefcase full of dynamite. I don't know. I guess I'd be in awe if they attempted it. I would follow through. We'd have to just play it out, but that would be insane. more likely, when it gets wheeled off stage and they see Fascia and the old crone and a bunch of other guys rushing back to go over to where the backstage door is, they're probably going to follow them. And there might be a confrontation there, and there's probably going to be all sorts of scuffle, and it's going to be kind of this is kind of the climax of the whole thing. It's kind of this cat and mouse game in the backstages, and the maze, basically, of the backstage of the opera. And so it's kind of almost Scooby-Doo-ish, it's going to be, where they're kind of like trying to find where this torso is, and they're moving all around this labyrinthine, areas, and these like cultists keep jumping out at them, and they have to like shoot them in the face or something. Like, probably not. That might be a bit noisy. That might disrupt the opera. So hopefully without guns. And of course the cultists are cultists. They can handle themselves generally, so that'll be interesting. And eventually they will catch up to the torso. Now, again, this will be more interesting if one of the investigators is an extra and he's with the torso. That might help him, but otherwise they'll bump into it eventually. And around the point that they all kind of collide together near the torso, Katerina loses her amnesia. She kind of remembers what's going on, and she just goes berserk all over Fascia's face. She's like throttling the life out of him, but some cultists tear her off him, and yeah. And so he's kind of like the well, we'll see how it goes. The investigators might just grab the torso and flee, which is what it implies in the book. But I don't know if I really see that happening. I see more of the investigators trying to kill everybody, but I might throw too many cultists at them. They have to leave. And actually, Fenelek is going to kill Fascia when he's alone. So there'll be a newspaper article about that. And so yeah, then they just have to smuggle the torso onto the train. And it's heavy, and it's the size of, it's like carrying a torso. Like, it's like carrying my torso around. It's not easy. So now it's going to get more complicated. And of course, whoever first touches it is going to get the baleful influence. So the torso is pretty bad. The torso is worse than the left arm. Let me read what it is for the torso. Okay, the torso is coughing, shortness of breath, rashes, back strain, nausea, rapid heartbeat. So it's just kind of all sorts of stuff going on in there. And so once they do kind of so then Milan will eventually recover from their malaise. The problem is here's the problem with Katerina then. She's still going to be without her original voice and looking like an old hag. There's not much the investigators can do about that. The only way that they can do that is if they get the... They're never going to get her voice back. It's impossible. Unless they abduct Fascia with them and preventing Fenelek from killing him, and they force him to use transplant organ on... That would be the only way. That would be the only way, is if they abduct him so he doesn't die, and they force him to use transplant organ to swap their lungs and their vocal cords and everything back. Then she could have a real voice, and if they force him then to use the control skin spell, he can put her features back where they were. The investigators could possibly learn how to cast control skin on their own, and fix her, but I don't know where. I don't know how they can learn that. It's written somewhere in some book that they can find, but I don't know exactly where. If I guess later on, if they infiltrate the Brother of the Skin cult and they get some of their scrolls, yeah, okay. But I doubt they're going to come back and help Katerina, because they just get, like, a bit of sanity. But, yeah, them's the breaks, man. Okay, and then with the closing of the Milan chapter, we are done with book 2 through the Alps. Holy shit. And then it'll be on to Venice. So, yeah, the campaign is going pretty well so far, I would say, overall. I'm pretty happy. Again, now we're going to get really into the kind of the heavy stuff, the cults, and, you know, the pressure is really going to start bearing down on them to where they're really going to appreciate the respite offered by the Dreamlands. But I'm going to have to remind them and tell them, like, the Dreamlands is a limited thing. As in, like, if they don't go to the Gulf of Nodens, you know, if they don't go all the way to the Gulf of Nodens, they get off at Seranian or whatever, yes, they can always go back to the Dreamlands. Well, they can always go back unless they die. But they can always go back on the Express if they don't go to the Gulf of Nodens. But the actual scenario is of limited length, you know. So, I know, and it's cool. It makes me want to run, like, a whole Dreamlands thing, which you can. They're out there. I can run Dreamlands shit. But I like the kind of juxtaposition, the back and forth between the oppressive, horrible, nasty, dangerous real world and the kind of just wonderfulness that is Dreamlands. That is not to say that nothing bad is going to happen in the Dreamlands. There will be death and horror in the Dreamlands, but not quite yet. Yeah, so that's that, I guess. So, yeah, I don't have the other books out for reference, but there are like 3 more books or something. Three, maybe 4. I don't remember. I think 3. I want to say 3 more books. I don't think they're all as long as this. Some are a little bit shorter, but yeah, we've got a bunch of campaign left. Don't worry. We've got to go to Venice, then Trieste, then Belgrade, Sofia, Constantinople, and then they come back. I didn't mention that. I know. They go back all the way back to London. But that is not for a long time from now. But, anyways, my name is Mang. This has been Secrets of Role Manging for Horror on the Orient Express. I'll see you fine folks next week.